This video focuses on the alien Nummos androgyny, which the Dogon people identified with immortality and twinness. This Dogon carving of the immortal Nummo twins shows them joined back to back, with one side male and the other side female. This carving is important because the same duality appears in artifacts throughout the world and provides us with an understanding of what this duality represented. I'm Shannon Dorey, and this is my third video about the alien Nummo and the Dogon religion. All of my videos are based on my books, which you can purchase from my website, shannondorey.com. This depiction of the Nummo twins is similar to this two-sided Celtic idol I saw at Caldrag Cemetery on Boa Island in Northern Ireland when I was there in 2007. Dated from 400 to 800, one side of the Celtic idol is male with a pointed penis beneath stylized crossed arms, while the other side is a female with a protruding tongue. The protruding tongue is a symbol of divinity and is traditionally associated with the Greek Gorgons. My research reveals that the Gorgons, who were later demonized by the patriarchal Greeks, were associated with the alien Nummo. This Gorgon on a Rhodian vase and dated to 600 BCE appears in my books, The Master of Speech and Day of the Fish. The vase depicts a Gorgon with wings, protruding tongue, catfish whiskers like the alien Nummo, and dual birds to emphasize her androgyny. During his research on Greek mythology, the historian Karl Kerényi identified the Gorgon with a sea goddess, further associating her with the alien Nummo, who were primarily aquatic beings. According to Kerényi, the names Gorgides and Gorgades were names for sea goddesses. He writes, "One cannot believe that Gorgo meant only something ugly and terrible, for the same name used to be given to little girls whose parents certainly did not expect them to turn into terrifying creatures." This would suggest that in the early years, the Gorgon was so respected that parents actually named their daughters after her. Over time, ancient Greece became a patriarchal culture, and with it the reversal of the religious symbols of the sea goddess. This marble statue of a Gorgon at the Archaeological Museum of Paris, dated 6th century BCE, shows a Gorgon with large angel-like wings. This is a back view of the same statue. The Dogon indicated that because the alien Nummo were aquatic beings, that they couldn't move very easily on land, and they had a device that helped them fly over the land. Although it's possible that they were later associated with birds because of this flying device, the Nummo did in fact have bird-like characteristics, including gizzards like birds. They may have also had wings, but might not have been able to fly with them. The 7th Nummo ancestor, for instance, who was a human-Nummo hybrid and who plays a key role in the religion, was associated with an ostrich, the largest flightless bird in existence. An ostrich is shown here from the Samburu Reserve in Somalia. The Dogon referred to the Nummo's flying device as an iron sandal that couldn't be used in certain areas because it emitted fire. Because the Nummo only had a fish or serpent-like tail, there was only a single sandal. The Greek sea goddess Emposa also had a single brazen sandal. Some authors described Emposa's face as glowing like a flame, with one of her feet being like bronze. She was twinned with another sea goddess known as Lamia. According to Kerényi, people would speak of the two sea goddesses in the plural, and when they did so, their names were synonymous, suggesting their dual nature. Lamia was a shapeshifter like the alien Nummo. The Greek playwright Aristophanes, who lived from 446 to 386 BCE, made his living ostracizing the older matriarchal religion. He's depicted on this first century bust located in the Uffizi Gallery in Florence, Italy. In his play The Frogs being another symbol associated with the amphibious Nummo, he presented the Gorgon with the lustiness of a harlot. Harlots or prostitutes were sometimes nicknamed Lamia, associating the sea goddess with the Gorgon. Aristophanes also depicted the Gorgon with an artificial phallus, suggesting her androgynous nature. According to David R. West, a scholiast to Aristophanes, believed that Lamia's name derived from her having a large throat or gullet. In my first video, the alien Nummo were described as being like chameleons with bulging throats, like the Yemen chameleon. Lamia's name meant the devourer. And this is important because a Dogon myth about the seventh Nummo ancestor, who was androgynous but primarily female, has her mythically swallowing and regurgitating the oldest man to signify the regeneration of humanity. Besides being a sea goddess, Lamia was said to have had serpentine qualities, like the alien Nummo, who were both fish and serpent-like. John Keats included this knowledge in his narrative about her, which was the inspiration for this 1890 painting, The Kiss of the Enchantress by Isabel Lillian Glogg. The patriarchal Greeks turned the goddess Lamia into a frightening creature that swallows children, and nurses would entertain and threaten children with Lamia to elicit good behavior. According to Maria Gimbutas, the Gorgon extends back to at least 6000 BCE. This Gorgon-type mask was found near Varna and is dated to 4600 to 4200 BCE and is located in the Varna Archaeological Museum in Bulgaria. Gimbutas says that the mask's round eyes, long mouth, and studs representing teeth are characteristic of the snake. This antefix of a Gorgon is dated 510 to 500 BC from Taranto, Italy. The significance of this depiction, aside from the whiskers and protruding tongue, are the dual serpents, which were referred to in my second video, and like the dual birds, are a symbol of androgyny. The Gorgon also appears in the Latilco culture of Mexico. This particular Latilco Gorgon mask, which is depicted in Day of the Fish, shows the protruding tongue and wings and is dated to around 1000 BCE. Twin figurines like the Dogon carving of the alien Nummo also appear in the Latilco culture. This is a double-faced ceramic figurine dated to 1200 to 900 BC, located at Princeton University Art Museum. Other Latilco artifacts show figurines with two separate heads joined to one body, like the alien Nummo twins. Vicky Noble compared them to some of the old European figures from the ancient Balkans referred to by Maria Gimbutas. This one is from an archaeological site in Serbia dated 5400 to 4500 BCE and come from the Vinca culture. It is located in the Serbian Museum of Vojvodina. This is a Gorgon from Corfu, Greece, who has serpents tied at her waist and emerging from the side of her head. This leg pose is really important when we compare it with the torch guardian found in the Maya culture of Copan, Honduras. I believe this torch guardian from Copan depicts a Gorgon. You can see what looks like dual serpents knotted at her chest and serpents at the side of her mouth. The same bent knee pose with serpents tied at the waist appears on this depiction from Delhi, India, of Garuda. Garuda is primarily known as the vehicle mount of the Hindu god Vishnu. I believe this image of Garuda is another Gorgon image and associated with the alien Nummo. He has whisker-type fangs, which also appear on the Gorgons, and bulging eyes like the 8 Nummo ancestors. Another serpent is wrapped around his neck. The tall hat reminds us of the Nummo's hood that covered their horn or casque, referred to in my first video. In Hinduism, the fish figure Matsya is the first avatar of the Hindu god Vishnu. In this painting of Vishnu, dated 1816, Vishnu's upper body emerges from the body of the fish, and Vishnu has 4 arms, which suggests 2 beings combined into one, similar to the Dogon carving of the alien Nummo twins. Since Vishnu and Garuda are typically shown together, it may suggest duality and androgyny. According to Joseph Campbell, Vishnu only had 1 foot. There are even little towns in India called the footprint of Vishnu, where Vishnu came down and left his footprint. This was like the alien Nummo and the 8 Nummo ancestors, who, because they had a fishtail instead of 2 legs like humans, were considered as having only 1 leg or foot. Earlier, the sea goddess Emposia Lamia had a single brazen sandal. Vishnu, as the fish figure Matsya, is described as having rescued the first man, Manu, from a great flood, which was referred to in my book, The Master Mistress of Speech. According to Roshan Dalal, in the Mahabharata, Garutman is stated to be the same as Garuda, then described as one who is fast, who can shapeshift into any form and enter anywhere. The Nummo were also shapeshifters, had gizzards like birds, and were described as having the speed of birds. This is a relief of Garuda with a serpent or fish-like tail on the 9th century Prambanan temple complex in Java, Indonesia. This relief suggests that originally the bird and the serpent, although depicted separately on later artifacts, were one and the same figure. In the Book of the Dead, the Egyptian serpent Wajet, who was referred to in my second video, was twinned with the vulture Nekbet, who was the deity of Upper Egypt, while Wajet was the deity of Lower Egypt. The 2 appear together on the headdress of Tutankhamun's famous burial mask on display in the Egyptian Museum in Cairo. In the Book of the Dead, the vulture Nekbet is referred to as Father of Fathers, Mother of Mothers, who hath existed from the beginning and is the creatrix of this world. This is a pointed relief of Nekbet in Queen Hatshepsut's temple with blue-green feathers, associating her with the alien Nummo, who were green. This is another depiction of Wajet and Nekbet from the Walter Arts Museum. I also refer to the Naga in Day of the Fish. They are deities or beings that take the form of a very great snake and appear in Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism. This Hosla sculpture of a Naga couple is found in the old city of Halbadu, the Hassan district, Karnataka, India. Some Naga are described as water dwellers living in streams or the ocean, and others are earth dwellers living in underground caverns. The alien Nummo also lived in water and underground caverns and caves. There was some suggestion that they needed to keep moist in order to stay alive. Notice how the tails and bodies are connected, suggesting androgyny. We see this again in this painting of Noah and Fuxi, unearthed in Xinjiang, China, and on display at the Chinese History Museum. On the silk scroll, both serpent figures wear one skirt, and only one arm each is shown, suggesting that this is one androgynous being. Noah was the Chinese creatrix of the world and referred to in my second video. According to Helen Fernald, Noah and her twin brother Fuxi were credited with creating humans and music. They cleaned up the earth after the fire and flood had devastated it. Some records about them date to as early as 2852 BCE. This painting dates from the early Tang dynasty, 651 to 676. Noah is depicted in this painting holding a compass, while Fuxi holds a set square. This is another picture of them found in the National Museum of Korea, which shows Noah's compass more clearly. Both objects are symbols associated with the Masonic Society and combine to form this Masonic symbol, which suggests duality. The symbol appears here on the gates of Freemasons' Hall in Bournemouth, England. The set square is also a symbol identified with the Christian apostle Thomas. The Apostle Thomas is depicted holding a set square on this sculpture in the Church of Notre Dame at Saint-Thégonnec in Brittany, France, created by the sculptor Roland Dorey, who lived from 1616 to 1660. The set square and its association with Fuchsie might seem irrelevant on its own, but the Apostle Thomas was Jesus' twin. He was identified as Jesus' twin in the Gospel of Thomas, dated 50 to 125, the Act of Thomas, dated 225, and the Book of Thomas the Contender, dated 125 to 225. These are codices of the Nag Hammadi Library, discovered in Egypt in 1945. In his foreword to the translation of the Book of Thomas the Contender, John D. Turner included a theory by H.M. Schenck that indicated the book had been Christianized by substituting the female figure known as Sophia in divine wisdom with the name of Jesus. This would suggest that Sophia was the original twin of Thomas and was the figure that Jesus was based on. In Gnosticism, she was depicted as a dove. If these things aren't peculiar enough, the statue of Thomas with the set square appears in the same church as this shuttered niche of a breasted serpent figure holding up the tree of Jesse, which is a tree depicting the ancestors of Jesus. The serpent figure, who we can associate with the Chinese Noah, appears beneath the Virgin Mary and the baby Jesus. I believe the creators of the niche were associating the serpent, or Noah, with the Virgin Mary and Sophia, or divine wisdom. The serpent's tail winds around the sleeping Jesse as she holds up the tree. Shuttered niches were created to hide important pagan knowledge from the Catholic inquisitors. When the inquisitors were around, the niches were kept closed. Mary is the main divine female figure in the Christian church, and I believe she became associated with Sophia, divine wisdom, and the original twin of the Apostle Thomas. We have to keep in mind that although we are identifying the male and female aspects of these divine twins, we are really just talking about one androgynous being in dual form. The alien Nummo were androgynous immortal beings, and androgyny as the immortal ideal is written about in the Gospel of Thomas, where Jesus is quoted as saying, "When you make the two one, and when you make the male and the female one and the same, so that the male not be male, nor the female female, then you will enter the kingdom." I believe that the Thomas-Sophia duality is being emphasized in this 1309 to 1316 painting that shows a female holding a set square in her left hand as a symbol of Thomas and Fuchsie, and a compass in her right hand as a symbol of Noah and Sophia. The patriarchal monks look shocked as they stare at the female teacher, with one monk holding his hand over his mouth, and another touching her hand to see if she is real. Are they shocked to see that Thomas is an androgynous twin? Or are they shocked to see that he is primarily female and that it is she who represents Jesus? If Thomas was the androgynous twin of Mary Sophia, and if Sophia represents Jesus, it may explain why Thomas wasn't around during the post-resurrection appearance of Jesus. He was also the only apostle at the Virgin Mary's ascension when she left him her girdle or belt as proof of the event. According to Chester Schofield, the legend about Mary ascending but leaving Thomas her belt is described briefly in the Golden Legend and in surviving English medieval mystery plays covered in the York Mystery Cycle. These references are important because the mystery plays are associated with the pagan religion and the events described by the Dogon involving the alien Nummo. This is a painting of Mary's Ascension by Torino Vanni, who lived from 1348 to 1438 in Pisa, Tuscany. I believe the painting is emphasizing the twins Thomas and Mary Sophia. 7 angels appear on either side that look similar to the twins. My research reveals that the Dogon androgynous 7th Nummo ancestor who was primarily female, is the figure that Jesus Sophia was based on. This is a 10th to 11th century statue depicting the 7th Nummo ancestor in the ancient Genet style of Mali. Although one arm is partly missing, her arms are raised, which in the Dogon religion was associated with the 7 Nummo ancestors' sacrifice and resurrection. This statue originated in the village of Damagari on the Bandiagara Plateau. The 7th Nummo ancestor had a human upper body and a fish-tailed or serpent-tailed lower body. The biblical Jesus was likewise associated with a fish and was seen walking on water. In the Dogon religion, the word was a metaphor for DNA, and the 7th Nummo ancestor, who was also known as the master mistress of speech, had the perfect DNA, which was the perfect word. She was considered the hope for humanity. The number 7 indicated 4 parts alien Nummo and female, and 3 parts human and male, the perfect combination. In reference to Christ in the Gospel of John 1 to 1:14, Christ was identified with the Word. The Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us. Like the 7th Nummo ancestor in the Dogon religion, Christ was sacrificed for the betterment of humanity. The Dogon expression Sodei represented the final state of knowledge and was known as the clear word. I believe it may have some linguistic association with Sophia as divine wisdom and the sacred feminine. This statue is imposing at over 6 feet 8 inches tall, or 210 centimeters. Her long neck, breasts, and beard, along with the twins depicted on her stomach, reveal her twinness or androgyny. She wears 7 wrist bracelets associating her with the 7th Nummo ancestor. Notice how the male twin on her stomach has his arms crossed, like what was seen on the statue at Boa Island in Northern Ireland. He also has a knee bent, like the Gorgons. Although damaged, the lower part of the statue probably once depicted a fishtail. According to the Quai Branly Museum, where the statue resides in Paris, the many necklaces and regal expression identify the figure with high social status. Aside from the Bible, there has never been any historical evidence to indicate that Jesus Christ actually existed. There is, however, lots of evidence throughout the world to indicate that the 7th Nummo ancestor existed. In order to explain how the 7th Nummo's ancestor's DNA was used to regenerate humanity, the ancestor was described as first swallowing and then regurgitating the oldest man, who was associated with the first human. I referred to this earlier when talking about the Greek sea goddess Lamia, who was known as the devourer and associated with swallowing myths. This is an image of Mary disgorging a body in Scivias 2:3 of the 20th century facsimile of the Rupertsberg manuscript, dated 1165 to 1180. This depiction was created by the German Catholic nun St. Hildegard, who was a Benedictine abbess. She founded the monastery of Rupertsberg in 1150. In Catholicism, this crowned female figure is identified with the Church rather than with Mary, but according to Peter Williamson, Mary is considered the mother of the Church. I believe this depicts Mary as the divine feminine, and that these swallowing myths were present in Europe right up until the Albigensian Crusade in 1209, when the Cathars were exterminated in France. A similar swallowing depiction is found in the Roman catacombs of San Callisto and dated to the 2nd century. This is a green serpent-like aquatic being disgorging a human, which is supposed to be depicting the Christian story of Jonah and the whale. The figure looks nothing like a whale, but what she does look like is the alien aquatic Nummo, who were green and had horns and whiskers. The bottom painting shows the regenerated human being associated with duality, with the addition of twin green birds with red stomachs. These beliefs still existed in Mexico when the Spanish arrived there in 1517. This is an image of the green feathered serpent, Quetzalcoatl, from the Aztec Codex Tellerramenensis, created in 16th century Mexico. The painting shows the green feathered serpent regurgitating a person, associating him with the seventh Nummo ancestor. The name Quetzalcoatl comes from the Nahuatl language and means precious serpent or Quetzal feathered serpent. The Quetzal bird shown here has green feathers, and the androgynous alien Nummo were green serpents. It also has a red stomach, like the dual bird seen in the painting from the Roman catacombs. The Egyptian vulture Nekhbet also had a red stomach and green wings in this painting shown earlier. What is even more interesting is that besides being associated with the serpent Fuxi, the Apostle Thomas was also identified with the feathered serpent Quetzalcoatl. According to John Fellon, Franciscans such as Toribio de Benevinti, also known as Motolinia, equated Quetzalcoatl with the Apostle Thomas. Quetzalcoatl and his twin Ekakat are shown on this post-conquest Tovar Codex, with the feathered serpent shown in human form, and his red-faced twin emerging beside his human head. On this picture of Quetzalcoatl, 7 tassels hang from his shield, associating him with the seventh Nummo ancestor, who was symbolized by the color red. These 7 tassels also appear on each side of the front of this Masonic apron from 1937, although one tassel on the left side has fallen off. The apron appears with 3 circles, like what appears on Quetzalcoatl's wings. Opposite twin serpents join together to form a clasp that attaches the apron belt together. The dual serpents are associated with the yin-yang symbol, which appears on Quetzalcoatl's shield. Earlier, 7 angels appeared on either side of Thomas and Mary in the painting of Mary's Ascension by Torino Vanni, who lived from 1348 to 1438. This is important because the Chinese Fuxi, who was also associated with the Apostle Thomas, was likewise identified with the yin-yang symbol. It is shown here on Fuxi's Teijitu diagram from the Chinese encyclopedia Guzhen Tushu Jingjing by Shen Mengle, and created between 1700 and 1725. The symbol is a visual depiction of the intertwined duality of all things in nature, a common theme in Taoism. In the symbol, we see 2 fish-shaped objects, one black and one white, with opposing colors, creating the circles for the fish eyes. The symbol is important because the androgynous Nummo were symbolized by dual fish. On the Chinese yin-yang or Teijitu symbol, black represents yin and white represents yang. A similar yin-yang symbol was found on a Maya altar stele at Copan, Honduras, and described in a French article by E.T. Hammy in 1886. This is a sketch of the altar. I believe this balance is also being depicted on this twin serpent relief, showing serpents in opposite directions, found on the inner wall of the Peruvian Cuelap fortress. It was built by the Sachapuyo people, who are known as the warriors of the clouds. Dated to the 6th century, it has finely worked limestone blocks of masonry with some weighing as much as 3 tons. The Nummo were associated with both fish and serpents, and the Nazca culture of Peru exhibits similar opposing figures of fish in pottery, such as this plate showing fish-type beings displayed in opposite form. Dual opposing fish also appear on this Nazca mantle from Paracas necropolis, dated 0 to 100 Common Era. This balance is likewise expressed in this Roman mosaic symbol, which was excavated at Sousse, Tunisia, on the site of the ancient Phoenician colony of Hadrumetum, which was founded in the 9th century BCE. According to the Bible, Jesus was born of the Virgin Mary, and Quetzalcoatl was also born of a virgin named Shamalma. My research identifies the self-fertilizing amphibious Nummo, whose androgynous presence was perceived as feminine, with virgin goddesses. The virgin goddess is also a notable theme in Greek and other world mythologies. This is a picture of Shamalma from Folio 9 of the Codex Laude, a pre-Hispanic Mexican manuscript possibly made in the 15th century. It depicts her like the Sheila Nagis referred to in my second video, and which appear in the old churches in the UK and Europe. The Sheilas are identified with the ancient frog goddesses and associated with the amphibious Nummo. Although the first Sheilas appeared in the 11th century, this particular Sheila is from St. Clement's Church in Rodell, Scotland, dated from the late 15th to early 16th century. In this picture of the Virgin Shamalma, she appears along with a serpent and a turtle, symbols of the alien Nummo in the Dogon religion. Like the female serpent at the bottom of the tree of Jesse in the Church of Notre Dame at St. Tegonique, shown earlier, Shamalma is depicted at the bottom of the tree of life in this picture of Shamalma in the Codex Laude. A single foot appears. The alien Nummo and the 8 Nummo ancestors were perceived as having only 1 foot. Shamalma has squid tentacles emerging from her head. 2 squid appear in this other picture of Shamalma from Folio 39 of the Codex Laude, further suggesting her dual nature. More about these squid associations will be referred to in my next video. All of these references may explain why the Church Fathers were constantly discrediting the Apostle Thomas. All of Thomas's works were preserved by the Manichaean Church, but were rejected by the compilers of the New Testament in the 4th century. Thomas is primarily known from his preaching in India, but an account by Origen, who lived from 184 to 253, also placed him in ancient Parthia, which is modern-day Iran. The last reports of the Apostle Thomas were found in Paraguay. In 1639, the Jesuit missionary F.J. Antonio Ruz de Montoya, shown here, wrote down oral traditions of the Guarani tribes of Paraguay, who claimed that the good Thomas, or Father Thomas, lived amongst them, preaching and doing miracles in the name of Jesus Christ. This was recorded again in 1784 by F.J. Martin Dobershofer, who had spoken to one of the warlords of the tribe. My next video will focus on Dogon star knowledge and how the Nummos duality extended into the universe. I'm Shannon Dorey, and for more information on these things, refer to my website, shannondorey.com. Thanks for watching.